Welcome to the True Rebellion series, Satsang with Vishrant. It's wonderful to have you here with us. Before we get started, we would like to let you know there are a couple of ways for you to interact with Vishrant during this satsang. There are 2 ways to ask questions. If you'd like to ask your question directly to Vishrant and interact with him, you can click on the Raise Hand button at the bottom of your screen. When Vishrant's assistant invites you to ask your question, please choose to unmute yourself on the pop-up window. You can then discuss your question. If you'd like to have your question read out by Vishrant's assistant, click the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen and type in your question. Vishrant will be with you very soon.
Welcome to Satsang.
Good morning, Vishrant. Would you please be able to speak about what is required to wake up?
The very thing that wants to wake up, the I, the ego, actually can't wake up, because awakening is when that is aware of the mind becomes aware of itself, which actually has nothing to do with the ego, the I. So the I can never really wake up, but what it can do is facilitate an environment where awakening can occur. And so the work for the seeker is to remove any obstacle that is in the way of awakening, and use methodologies like self-inquiry and meditation to turn awareness back to itself, so awareness can lock onto itself and stay on itself. Someone who's enlightened has that is aware of the mind, aware of itself continuously, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. For most human beings, awareness that's aware of the mind is just that, aware of the mind and through the senses, the body and the world. Someone who's awake has managed to turn awareness back to itself. The I doesn't really get to come to that party, because the I itself, without imagination, doesn't exist. It's a dream. But it can assist by self-inquiring, asking the question, who's aware, or what's aware? It can also assist by removing any obstacle which creates resistance or contraction in the mind and attracts awareness to itself. This would mean removing belief systems that have expectations attached to them. When those expectations aren't met, contraction and resistance to life can occur. In removing or undoing the belief systems, there can be freedom from that form of resistance. So we go on and on and on. How do we wake up? The I thinks, well, I'll wake up. No, the I doesn't wake up. Awakening can occur at any time. A satori can occur at any time. You could be doing Sufi whirling. You could be meditating. You could be walking on a beach. You could be getting up from the breakfast table. It doesn't matter, because reality is always here. Pure awareness is always here. And when it gets a glimpse of itself, it gives you an understanding that, heck, we're not just an I, there's something else here. Those who meditate, who find no mind, find that they're there, but there's nobody there. There's no I there. There's just pure awareness. So what is this that is purely aware? That is what is interesting to the seeker. And the question, of course, is, who am I really? Who am I? So the seeker investigates. Usually gets involved in studying books, YouTube, videos, trying to collect knowledge so they can understand their way to enlightenment. And of course, that does not work. You cannot understand your way to enlightenment, because understanding is the booby prize. It's just a knowledgeable ego. What is aware of that knowledgeable ego? What is aware of it? That's of interest. Who are you really? And so it is only in practice that people wake up. The practice of self-inquiry, the practice of meditation, the practice of openness, and the practice of removing all obstacles that are in the way, that create contraction in the mind and attract awareness back to itself. You look at these contractions. The mind contracts, awareness goes to it. And so if the mind even finds awareness, awareness turning on itself, it starts to witness it. It starts to try to own it. And in that very ownership, it loses it. The mind has to let go. And so quite often it's said that what's required is unconditional surrender. And it's true. The mind needs to give itself to truth. The mind of the I says, thy will be done, not my will. And so it surrenders. It surrenders to truth. It gives itself to truth. And that works if the mind is actually ready, if the mind has been prepared to support enlightenment. A mind that is constantly contracting and resisting life has not been prepared properly yet. Because the likelihood is that even if awareness is aware of itself, even if consciousness is aware of itself, there is going to be coming back to the mind when the mind starts contracting and resisting. So you look and see what works and what doesn't work. It took me a long time to realize that the collecting of knowledge doesn't work. You can't raise your consciousness levels, and you can't become enlightened by collecting knowledge. Even if the knowledge is good, it's not going to help that much. The only bit of knowledge that you need to know is that unconditional surrender is the doorway to enlightenment. Self-inquiry will facilitate it. Meditation will facilitate it. The practice of openness will facilitate it. All of these things are up to you. You really want to wake up, you need to do what you need to do to make it so. Are there any questions? Any statements? Any challenges to this teaching today?
The first question: how can I deepen my love affair with truth so that my mind will surrender to it?
Okay. So I can only talk about the experience that happened here. And that was that I got curious. I wanted to know what it was all about. What is this enlightenment thing? What is this higher consciousness thing? I'd been curious about personal growth before that. And it turns out that a lot of the things that involve personal growth also support higher consciousness, like removing belief systems that are limiting, undoing anything that creates resistance in you. Any kind of failure pattern needs to be looked at and undone. So it's up to you it's up to you, completely up to you. You actually have to look and see. for me, I started to watch the mind. And in witnessing the mind, I started to see, there's something here that's aware of the mind. There's something else here. Where is this go? What's this that's aware? And then I get caught back into analysing the mind and collecting knowledge and listening to teachers because I was only curious at that stage. The love affair hadn't developed yet. Then I started to, in satsang with Osho Rajneesh, I started to experience some of the silence and stillness that was around him. And there was a beauty in it. It was peaceful. And so I would come to satsang in the morning, and I'd go to darshan at night, and I just fell in love with the silence and the stillness and the peace. It was just beautiful. Then after a few years, I started having what's called satori's. I had a major satori where, while walking on the beach one day asking the question, who am I discovered self as the universe. Just every particle of everything that existed. And my mind went, wow, I want more of that. I want to know that. That became my beloved from the mind's perspective. And I just wanted to be one with the beloved. And so in examining the mind, I started to see what was creating the separation. And it was the dream of I. And so self-inquiry continued. Who's aware? What's aware? Who am I? The I was dismissed in meditation. It was dismissed in self-inquiry. The space was started to be found. The love affair from the mind to beingness, the beloved, was becoming stronger and stronger. And then some teachers came 8 years after Osho had died, and the moment they walked in the room, awakening occurred again, enlightenment, satori, self as everything. Oh, it's hard to describe. Self as everything and nothing. The mind was so infatuated, it was prepared to give itself to truth. It so wanted to be one with truth, the beloved. It gave itself to truth.
Without Satori, do you think it's possible to fall in love